Hi everyone, welcome to THT, and today we are going to talk about the first week of Planetary Qualifiers, which was this weekend, and it happens at the same time as the Lille sector qualifiers, so obviously it got a little bit overshadowed, but nevertheless it's the first week, so there's been a lot of tournaments happening all over the world, including in Asia. So it's going to be really cool to take a look at it. So let's take a look first. But before that, we have our sponsor, Card Market, biggest marketplace in Europe to buy and sell cards. Check them out if you don't know about them. They are awesome. Moving on. This is the breakdown of every deck that won a PQ this week. So one of the things that was pretty interesting about this first week PQ is that there were some really drastic differences of attendance between the different tournaments. So you had basically PQs of all the way up to 114 people, which is a lot for a PQ. It's almost the maximum size. And we had a PQ of 5 people in Taiwan, which I think is the very first PQ in Asia. So not a great start for the Asian scene in Star Wars Limited. Hopefully it grows from there. 5 people for a PQ is unprecedentedly small. We also had an 11-player PQ in Mexico, so it was like, yeah, there are some PQs that are just very, very, very small. But obviously we are experimenting. FFG is experimenting, trying to open new areas, and if this can contribute in making the game more popular in new areas of the game, I think it's a really, really good thing for us. As you can see, this first week of PQ was characterized by a landslide for Qi'ra. 7 PQ won by Qi'ra this weekend. That's a lot if you compare to everything else. We got a pretty even spread, but just Qi'ra is just taking over. I don't necessarily think it's representative to the dominance of Qi'ra on the meta. I think the meta is in an extremely good place. Qi'ra is a very strong deck among others, and I think it's only a coincidence that it ended up just doing so well. We'll see if that gets confirmed in future weeks. Other than this, we got some Quinlan, some Cat Bane. The Bosk was a Bosk blue. I think we have a one Han green, a Yoda, which did pretty well in a relatively large PQ. And then we have Ray Green, which won the biggest PQ, the 114 players, which we'll talk about in more details afterward. We got a Kazuda yellow, winning one, and only one Sabine won a PQ this weekend. So obviously this is the kind of data that is interesting to look at, but I think it's going to be more interesting to look at the next data, which is the top 8. And obviously top 8 is much more representative of what the meta is like. And as you can see here, there's once again a very nice diversity, but we get 19 Sabine and 19 Qi'ras neck to neck. Quinlan a little bit on the back foot, and then we got Han yellow. It doesn't specify the color. And then Anakin, Cat Bane, Bosk. Bosk is not doing so bad here. 7 Bosk in total, and most of them are Bosk blue. Some are Bosk green, but most of them Bosk blue. And then we got Vader 4, also definitely looking out to be the... it wouldn't be a surprise if... it would be a surprise for me, at least from the very beginning, but it wouldn't... From that point on, I think it's pretty clear that there's a chance that... there's a chance that that Vader 4 might be one of the best leader in set 4, one best new leader, at least the best new deck. I think Vader 4 is in this very interesting place where it's not a very strong deck, in the sense that it's very, very easy to counter, but if nobody minds him, nobody counters it, it's a deck that can be really, really powerful. So it's really this kind of weird decks that I think are really powerful if not countered, but are very, very easy to counter. So as long as it remains in kind of this tier 3 kind of positioning, it's going to be really, really good. And I think that if you end up in a place where people start countering, it's like dedicating some sideboard cards, then this is where the deck's just going to plunge back to being in the unknown. So it's a bit in a weird place. And then we see Kazuda, Piet, we see Boba 4 making 3 top 8s. Obviously, some of those top 8s are from very small tournaments. You would need to basically take a look at what are the size of PQs where you see those. Maybe in the 5-player PQ, there's like 4 Boba 4 in top 4, and then suddenly it's part of the So you got to keep that in mind, obviously. Yeah, so pretty interesting to look at. Once again, those stats are going to be more interesting to look at when we get just a bigger quantity of data and maybe bigger events. We're going to move now to the... I want to take a look at specifically at the Planetary Qualifier in Newington, because it was a Planetary Qualifier which gathered 114 people, which apparently is relatively significant, so it's going to be interesting to take a quick look at the top 8. I'm going to start here with the top 8 with Francois playing his Vader yellow list. So there's some very interesting stuff going on here. So this is the whole space Vader yellow that we've seen before, using the I think the big innovation from this deck is the Clone Combat Squadron, which obviously is very, very strong in this deck. I'm not saying obviously, because it was definitely something that you had to kind of see, that the Canadian kind of brought to the PQ, to the regional qualifier in Richmond, and we saw one being within the top 25 also in Lille as well. So it's a deck that, once again, if you're not countering it, it can be very, very strong. So in this case, there's a couple of interesting innovations, like for example the commissions, which allow you to fetch for either a transport, a bounty hunter, or an item. So in this case, it's what is the transport that you want to get? Well, I guess it's like, it can be really good against Quinlan when you run out of card and you can just play this from your smuggle. And I think the deck plays enough transport to almost guarantee always to find a hit. So this is kind of like a way to draw cards whenever you are running, when Quinlan just gets rid of all of your cards, and you can kind of grind this out. So that's pretty interesting. We also seeing a collection of different cards. It's called Fighter. Also playing the super heavy cannon, Ion Cannon. This card is just extremely slow in my opinion, and very, very easy to counter. So so I'm not sure exactly in what situation, but this is the kind of card that can give an element of surprise. There's a lot of cards in this deck that are just here for the element of surprise. Auto Rim Headhunter, 3 copies of this. That's also quite surprising, considering that you get a leader deploy that deploys on 6. So you're not really going to benefit from the ability anytime soon, and then you end up with just a 2-3 for 2 raid one, which is not amazing. And I felt like there's just better things to do in the early stage of the game. But yeah, he's already playing the Ziggurat Star Hopper, so yeah, kind of. Yeah, I just feel like there's just like he's not playing like the swarmy, the one that leaves 2/1/1s for 2. He prefers to play the 2/3s instead. So he's also playing, he's also playing like the timely reinforcements to add more tokens, and also even 1 copy of Scrambler Fighters, and even another one in the sideboard. That is very interesting. So a lot of like kind of out of the box, a lot of like kind of experimentation here with a lot of one-offs. I think there's a great emphasis on trying to provoke the element of surprise. The core of the deck is pretty much the same, but there's just a lot of random one-offs. I would be very curious to hear which of those one-offs ended up working out better than others. I find Scrambler Fighters to be very weak because you cannot attack with... I like timely reinforcement. I'm not a big fan of Scrambler Fighter because you cannot attack the base with those, so it's very slow. You just put them on for 7. Basically, it's a 7-drop with no immediate impact on the game, because you can't really attack a base with the 1/1s, and you don't really want to sacrifice your 1/1s into enemy units most of the time. So I just would rather have timely reinforcement that gives me Sentinel units, much more flexible card. But in this case, basically Scrambling Fighters might be just the additional copies of timely reinforcement as a way to kind of like completely reswarm the board once things have been swiped by removal or by mass removal. So it's very interesting anyway. I really like the commission. I think it's could be really a great card. Moving on to the other list here. This is a list from Titan K, and he's running a pretty straightforward hand green that we've seen. It's the version that goes into space, try to drop like a Falcon or an AT Aller, and then drop like a Chewbacca or a Han Solo or a Luke on it, pilots to basically just run away with the game. And it has so it's either that's plan A, and the plan B is to go turn 2 resupply and then turn 3 7-drop. So there's the fusion of the classic hand green and the kind of pilot hand green. I used to be a massive fan of this deck back in set 1. You all know back one of my first video that did well. And it's not the deck I like any. It's not, and people might be surprised to not see me play more hand green, since it's now a pretty strong meta deck. The reason why I'm not playing it is just because this deck is very different from the one I first played in set 1. The way I was designing this deck was really has like kind of value engine, so it was like a mid-range deck that could value and be aggressive. This one is much more all-in on the aggressive plan. It has this kind of cheesy plan of like dropping a Chewbacca on the space unit to try to run away with the game. This is not my playstyle at all. It's not the kind of game I like to play, so that's why I don't run the deck. It's just not the same deck anymore, really, compared to what it used to be. It's undeniably stronger, but it's just not the same deck. So yeah, this is pretty much what you would expect, I would say. There's a couple of 1 copies of Confiscate, because the deck is very vulnerable to upgrades, generally speaking. And yeah, the deck is pretty much pretty much what you would expect. You get the Home 1 salvage plan, sideboard plan for the control matchup. You got the R2D2, which are probably here to help out whenever you are dropping like a Falcon on turn 1. You're really scared that your opponent takes the initiative and just plays Sabine Masterpiece, or even the 4-1 ambush to one-shot your dude. You can avoid this by playing an R2 on your Falcon. Then the Falcon is very, very safe against a lot of decks. That this like random R2s can really be very annoying to deal with. So that's why it's in the deck. And we also pulled the Hammer on. This one is a bit more. I guess it's like a kind of flexible card that can either be a unit that can be quite respectable, like 4/5 in space for 4 is not bad. Especially when you get to play 1 turn earlier thanks to Han Solo, and you can sometimes just be a pilot to boost your Falcons and do very well. So that's that's the out of the box plays that I can see that I think are quite good. Moving on, we got Farm Boy, who was running the Gram of Tarkin blue deck, which is something we've seen before. But it was not in set 4. So I think it's the first Gram of Tarkin set 4 that we're seeing making results in tournament. So it is a relatively aggressive deck, even though it can play the mid-range play. It even goes all the way to Avenger and also play ramp. So it's kind of weird because at the same time there's elements that are very, very passive, like the ramps into like those very expensive cards, and also spending an entire turn really playing like a no glory only result. I'm also very surprised to see direct hit seeing play. It's like, yes, vehicles see play, but they don't see they see play, but most of the units you can kill with direct hit, you can also kill them with Fail the Dragon, and Fail the Dragon is far more flexible cards, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly about this. Yeah, this deck is very weird. It's really kind of, he has this, it's very aggressive. As you can see, he has a lot of like turn 1 plays. Director Krennic is a great addition to the deck, because you get the 2/2 shielded that is Imperial, so you can boost it with the experience token. So this is probably one of the best addition. And then obviously into the shuttle is very strong. Iden Verso can be really strong as well. The rest of the deck is then he plays There's No Glory because it's a great removal, but then yeah, it has this the game plan here is leaves me a little bit surprised and not super. I'm not a big fan of this of having this deck being half aggro, half ramp. It's, for me, that's really the game plan here is going to be very those two gameplays basically kind of work against each other. So yeah, not a huge fan of this list, but a good game. This is I guess he did well, so well played. Moving on, we got another hand green, and this one is exactly the same as the previous. So actually, at least both of those players are from the same team, Maclunky Gaming. So they're running the exact same list, and they went for a double top 8 in this PQ, which is a great performance, so well done to them. We get into a top 4 now. Top 4, we got a Qi'ra Data Vaults list that is very, very classic. We see the ATRT being run instead of Childsen. I think Childsen is a kind of difficult to use in this deck. It's hard to make it more than 4/4, and I'm pretty sure I would rather have a 3/5 Sentinels that is guaranteed rather than a 4/4 Sentinels conditional. I mean, sometimes, of course, it can be a 5/5 or even a 6/6, but it also can be worse. It can also be a 2/2 and a 3/3, especially when you are in top deck mode. So I'm pretty sure I prefer Frontier ATRT, and at least you don't have to worry about. One of the things with Charleston that we don't often talk about is that sometimes Charleston forces you to do some very bad resourcing where you're trying to resource to make your Charleston better, and as a result, it forces you to resource card that you wouldn't want to resource otherwise, like for example a barrage or something like this. So this is another kind of disadvantage of Charleston, and I really prefer ATRT in the context of a green deck that runs a significant amount of green cards, like it is the case here. The rest of the deck is, yeah, it's very classic. Even ATRT now is becoming the standard. So this is a really, really classic textbook. Qi'ra green, Qi'ra Data Vault, and it's a very strong deck. Interesting that he's running one copy of Salvage instead of Palpatine's Return. So the advantage of Salvage, right, is like it allows you to reanimate like smaller cards. So if you basically want to reanimate a non-force unit that costs less than 6, then Salvage is going to be slightly better. And I guess it can reanimate something like a Devastating Gunship or an ATRT, which can be useful against aggro, but generally speaking, you don't run Salvage against aggro. So yeah, I'm not really sure about this. I would honestly 99% of the time always prefer to reanimate something big for a very control and grindy matchup rather than reanimating something small. So yeah, there's Salvage. Palpatine's Return is just better than Salvage 99% of the case. So there's a little synergy, I guess, whenever you can reanimate Devastating Gunship and she get +1 attack from the grid. But yeah, I don't think that's enough. I would just much rather play Palp's Return. But obviously that's a very, very small difference here in builds. Then we got R Hunter running on Sabine Green, and this is once again a pretty classic list. He's running the Confiscate in the main deck. Probably for the mirror match, is very useful to have Confiscate, can get rid of a Dark Saber. It's really, really powerful. But obviously it does make your 4 cards I believe in worse. But in this case, it makes sense because he's not running 4 cards I believe in. He's running 3 Dark Sabers, 3 Timely Intervention, and Confiscate. This is one of the advantages of not running 4 cards I believe in. Is like it does allow you to be free of like running out of aspect card, running of non-heroic cards, which does open up options in terms of builds. Timely Intervention is a great card. The only reason that people don't play the 3 of is once again because of the bad interaction with 4 cards I believe in. So yeah, Timely Intervention is basically the finisher in that version of the deck. Not running 4 cards I believe in is definitely going to be a problem against control, especially against control that don't run any units, because then you can't really use Timely Intervention most of the time. Or at least you can't use it to really deal damage, because the only units that kind of decks are going to play are just very, very large units. So yeah, I can see this working in an environment where you're really trying to finish the game with Timely Intervention instead of trying to finish the game with 4 cards I believe in. So yeah, he still plays 1 in the sideboard, but that's very anecdotal. He's also running this card, which I think is called Rule with Respect, which is a way you can capture all of the units that attack your base, and I think is a way to. It's kind of like I like to call them like secret text, the kind of cards that can blow you out if played at the right moment. And in this case, whenever you're playing a mirror of aggro and the opponent is just attacking your base, you can pull a Rule of Respect. The opponent is not expecting you to have this card. You can really win a game of this, something like this. This is obviously insanely situational, so I'm wondering how often you manage to play it, especially since it's a one-of in the sideboard, but it's definitely a card that could blow someone off guard for sure, and this has values, I think, in the game. Moving on, we got the list of the finalists. It's another Qi'ra Green, Qi'ra Data Vault. This one is running a bit different. Yeah, it's still pretty much the classic list. There's 1 copy of Snoke. I'm personally not a big fan of Snoke in this meta. I don't think Snoke is a particularly good card in this particular meta. He used to be great because he was great against Gar Saxon, which saw a lot of play. during the Django meta, and he was obviously amazing against Django. But now that the Django is gone and Gar Saxon sees a lot less play, I feel like Snoke is not really doing so well. I guess it's a good option to have against Vader, against the new Vader all space deck. So I guess this could be just a one-off, just to blow someone out if he in this kind of situation. So I think as a one-off it's completely acceptable, especially in the 60 card deck. Also runs 2 copies of Timely Intervention. There's not really, it's really good with Reinforcement Walker, but it's very expensive to make it happen. Then other than this, it doesn't really do so well. I guess it's fine on Death Trooper. It's obviously all of the other units have Ambush already. Avenger and Devastator most of the time don't benefit so much for having Ambush. So yeah, it's not super sexy, but it can give you additional options in the late game, I guess. Moving on, we got the champion who runs a Ray Devil deck that is similar to the one that was run by Qi'ra, and it's actually interesting to see that he managed to win the final against a Qi'ra green deck. I think so it's also very interesting because this PQ basically happens on Sunday, I believe, which was basically on the same day as Qi'ra doing his performance and making it day 2. Making it top 8, so that means that this person picked up that deck before Qi'ra was actually able to make his top 8. So either he knew Qi'ra and they basically communicated and he shared his list and he decided to play it, or he basically saw the list of Qi'ra and picked it up. I don't know if the list is identical, but the idea is very much the same. You're seeing the Momothma value and you're seeing the huge value engine with R2D2 3PO. There's no way this person came up with this deck by itself, or maybe it's Qi'ra who copied him, but that's very unlikely. So yeah, how about the deck? Well, I've already talked about this deck. I think it's a good meta call. I think it's meant to be played to be those aggro decks, and it has an engine value that allows him to play the long games. And as you can see here, with him being able to win against him being able to win against Qi'ra, it's a deck that can outvalue Qi'ra because of the engine. Runs 3 Omo-1, 3 U-Wings, the Momothma. There's a real value engine going on here in this deck, which can be something that, and he's also running the 3 Feather Dragon, so it has removals as well against the enemy threats. So I think it's it's obviously a very interesting deck, and I think in an environment where Palpatine and Bosk don't see that much play, it's a deck that can really do very well. But it's very much a meta deck. I don't think it can beat everything, but to be fair, I don't think many decks can beat everything. But it's definitely so yeah, it's definitely significant to see this winning a 140 player tournament alongside, of course, the top 8 performance of Qi'ra. I also wanted a quick touch up on this on what happened here. Something to note about the top 8 for Qi'ra is that he actually faced Sip in before the top 8, and basically he was in a position to win the game, but time was called, and technically this game should have ended into a draw, and it's only because Sip decided to give the win to Qi'ra that Qi'ra ended up winning the game. If Sip could have very well just said, well, this is a draw, and that means that Qi'ra would have missed the top 8. So that's just something I wanted to talk about because I didn't talk about in my review of Lille, so I just wanted to talk about quickly about it. Anyway, Lille from the regional side event. So this I want to talk about this tournament, even though it's not a Planetary Qualifier, because it's a tournament that gathered 180 people, which is massive. Makes it probably the biggest side event ever organized. So I think it's a tournament that is very significant. 180 players, in my opinion, is a lot. With that being said, obviously, you gotta understand that people who took part in this regional side event are obviously the people who didn't manage to make to day 2 in the other event. So even though it's a tournament that has loads of players, 180 players is a lot, it didn't have the best player playing it, because it's all of the player didn't make it to day 2 who basically decided to play that event. So obviously it doesn't mean the player who played that event are bad. I'm just saying that the best players who came up to Lille, most of them were already playing the side events on day 2. So that's something to keep in mind. But it's still very interesting to take a look at this. And we're gonna start first with this Qi'ra Daredevil deck. It's very straightforward. It's a pretty standard. One thing that is interesting about this version is like he's running 2 Relentlesses in the main deck, which is crazy. He's also running a System Patrol Craft in the main as well. That's definitely interesting. Something that can catch some people by surprise. I think it's pretty good against Sabine, I guess. Seeing System Patrol Craft is nice because it's a card that reminds me a lot of Set 1's meta. So I love this. For a long time, System Patrol Craft has been one of the best space defenses in the game. Nowadays, people there's better options, I feel like, but it's just a random one of it's not a big deal. He's also playing the Phase 3 Phase Trooper, which is something we don't see very often. So it seems like to be like a Qi'ra deck that was kind of geared towards trying to support the aggro matchup a little bit, trying to get some earlier Sentinels, and then get the Lompike instead of the Charleston, as a way to kind of give themselves a little bit more gas against Quinlan. But the Relentless are very interesting to see this in the main. It's pretty good in the mirror, and it's also quite good against Out Control, obviously. And once again, we're seeing the 2 Palps, 1 Salvage kind of split things happening. Still prefer 3 Palps return personally, but yeah, it's an interesting see this couple of places. So this player was Odium SWU, and we now move on to another Sabine played by No Marak, and he was playing a Sabine Grain. This is a very classic version, textbook Sabine. Plays the Metal Ceremony. Yeah, it's a very classic version. Only plays the 2 Wing Leaders, I guess. But yeah, other than this, it's really much what you would expect from a Sabine deck. That's exactly how most people build Sabine. So very, very solid deck indeed. Then we got the Palpatine Colossus. So Palpatine, I think, is a deck that is very interesting. I mean, it's the same deck that we've seen, that we know and hate. It's a deck that is very, very strong against soft control decks, notably Qi'ra. So it's a deck that will do very well against Qi'ra. With that being said, I think that the new version of Qi'ra Data Vault is actually doing a lot better against Palpatine than it used to, because now you have the meal plan is advantageous now for the, if both players just go meal against meal, Qi'ra has the advantage because she has 10 extra cards in her deck, even though she's less likely to draw the Vigilance naturally. But I still think like the 10 extra card is more of an advantage, it is an inconvenient in this matchup. So I feel like the Qi'ra matchup has become like a little bit better for Qi'ra, but it's still a bad matchup, because at the end of the day, your opponent has one of the most impactful palp deploy. But this version is running Colossus though, and Colossus making draw 1 less card is definitely something that can be detrimental, even though it does make the aggro matchup a little bit better. So this is a version of the deck that I feel like should be doing okay against aggro. I think Palpatine is always bad against aggro, but this version here runs the full package of Yularians, runs the client. I'd say it's only one client actually, yeah. And it runs of course the Colossus, so maybe this deck doesn't do so terrible against aggro, but I just think that regardless of what, I've kind of like gave up on running Colossus on Palpatine, simply because I feel like Colossus does not help enough against aggro, doesn't fundamentally change the aggro matchup. It's still very, very bad. However, it does make the other matchup worse most of the time, so that's why I've kind of went back into playing the 30 HP base on my Palpatine decks personally, but anyway, it's a solid deck. We've seen this deck over and over again. It's really strong against it's bad against aggro, it's strong against everything else. It runs a random copy of Gram of Tarkane, which is a card that I think is like drawing 2 cards is putting a body on the battlefield to play around Power Dark. That is very strong against control, so that's really nice. Runs a Relentless to the main. And yeah, he's running he's definitely not looking to meal you whenever you're playing his control deck. He's really looking to get those Relentless into Palpatine's kind of plans to try to win the game that way. Moving on, we got a Gar Saxon list. Gar Saxon is still a good deck, in my opinion, as you can see here, from Well 649. Uh, this is a deck that has received a lot of upgrades from the new set. Of course, the Krennic, the Outer Rim Outlaw, and Aiden Versio and Shuttle ST49. Just so many great cards. I've added a lot of power to the deck, made him a lot more explosive, gives him a lot more consistency. So it's still a really good deck. And I think this version is really nice. I think it's very well rounded. Runs the Bobas in the sideboard. Some people like to run this in the main. But yeah, it's pretty much what you would expect here for a Gar Saxon deck. And if you're looking for a good, strong budget deck, this is a good one. I think the only expensive card here is the Change of Art, which honestly, Change of Art is not a must-have. In Gar Saxon, you can really replace it by other cards. You can really much replace it by other things. You can probably you could even play Power Dark Side here instead, as an extra removal or something. And the rest of the deck is very, very cheap, so it's a really, really good deck. Moving on to the top 4, we get a Colossus Anakin. So recently we've seen the Anakin kind of going away from Colossus, playing 30 HP base. This one succeeds with the extra 5 HP. I feel like if you are running a Colossus, you can kind of afford to be a little bit more value focused, and you can play like the Stella Guerrera and stuff. If you're not, even though this version only plays one, if you're running the 30 HP, you have to play a bit more defensive to make up for that. And I think both approach kind of works, to be fair. So this version is has a lot of different cards. There's a really, really even split. Only 2 copies of Cassian is shocking to me. Cassian is one of the best cards. For me, it's one of the very few auto-include cards in Star Wars Unlimited. So that's quite surprising. He's running a random copies of Bravado, which can be very strong against Anakin. Also the random copies of Resolute, which is nice. And you also see Saw Gerrera seeing play. It's kind of a card I find to be pretty good. It's a card that I don't like personally, but yeah, I don't see how this can be good. I guess it has these. He has rate 2, right? So I think the advantage of Saw Gerrera is that you can snipe. If you use it with Anakin's ability, you can snipe very large things, I guess. But yeah, not a big fan. Yeah, other than that, it's a pretty classic Anakin's deck, so nothing more to say. And then we got a Qi'ra deck here in top 4. That's another one. This one is fairly classic. He runs the top targets in the main deck, so really scared of aggro. I mean, Qi'ra has been struggling a little bit against aggro, so putting some in the main deck some anti-aggro cards is not like is not a bad idea. But on the other hand, he's not really playing any of the Sentinels, 4-drop Sentinels that we are used to see. No Charleston, no ATRT. So that could be a problem against aggro. So he kind of just trying to heal instead of trying to block the board. It's kind of the approach that he's taken here. And we'll move on now to the finalists. The finalist list is on Aiden Blue. So basically, I'm not a big fan of Aiden Blue because it has a very bad late game. The late game is just not that impressive. You almost always have to win with the meal shenanigans, because then you get the Snoke and you get to Avenger. Snoke is not that great in the meta, as I explained, so then you have to rely almost exclusively on Avenger to kind of close out the game. And yeah, so the advantage that you get with Aiden is basically you get a cheaper Vigilance, which is really good. I'm not denying this. Then you get Equalize, which is not amazing in the current meta. It's a bit like Snoke. It was really good into the Django meta. Now it's not as good anymore. And you got Suki, I guess. Suki, I think is the name of the card, which is kind of okay. So you're not really getting a whole lot, and you're losing a lot. You if you compare this to a Bosk, you're losing out on the great late game that you got with Grey Dragon and Palpatines. You're losing out on obviously Bosk ability earlier deploy with the double claim, the double bounty claim, which is one of the best things. It's aggro double draw bounty claims with Bosk is game ending. If you get the draw bounties in a Quinlan matchup or in the any control matchup, it's just instant win, because you can't lose after drawing so many cards. Yeah, so it feels like and if I want to be playing a deck that does really good well against another control deck, like to ride the draw bracket meta, I would much rather play like a yellow Iden that is able to. So yeah, I'm not seeing the advantages of. I don't feel like running double blue is worth it in the current iteration of the game. So yeah, but obviously this player did very well, so it's really cool to see Heart Control doing well here, as it is often the case in Europe. And yeah, we move on now to the champion. The champion was running a Quinlan red. So a Quinlan is doing pretty well against control, because it's a deck that is both capable of being very aggressive and has just a ton of hand disruptions that are extremely useful. This specific version, though, is not super well prepared against control, I guess, because it doesn't run pillage, and he runs the Spark of Rebellion in the sideboard. It runs Jam Communication, I guess, but it's not the version that is super well prepared against Heart Control. It has the so here, this version, I think the main deck is very much what you would expect, at the exception of Anakin Skywalker. Like this is a card that I don't see very often. And he's also running Daring Raid, which is kind of cool. I can see this card being quite good sometimes. I guess you can take people by surprise. That's an important factor. Then the rest of the deck is pretty much what you would expect. And then you have the hovering tank here as a plan against aggro, I would say, which is something we've seen. The good thing about hovering tank, it's really good against Sabine, the Sabine leader, but that's about it. Everything, he was just going to trade 3/5. You're going to trade a 2-drop for a 3-drop. So it's a little bit, it's okay, but it's not super amazing. Moving on now, I just wanted to say that you can currently get the Million Falcon on Card Market for 25 euro. So that's basically much the end of this video here. So nice to see that we are seeing tournaments from all over the world, and the PQ season is going to pick up and continue to pick up, and we're going to be able to see what deck can consistently perform, and we're going to see if the trends continue. The meta seems to be a little bit figured out. I could be wrong about this. It's very diverse, but it seems to be a little bit figured out. I don't see some really strong change coming, but I think that could be. So we'll see exactly how it goes. I also believe that we have still one major tournament. We have the regional qualifier in US, so this could be a massive earth shaker. So we'll see how that goes. We saw that, for example, the meta there was some pretty big evolution of the meta between Richmond and Lille. So maybe it's due to the fact that it's like US versus Europe, but I think the meta is pretty much figured out. But I'm waiting to see what the Americans are going to bring up in the upcoming regional qualifiers. Thank you so much for following that video. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and consider also purchasing some stuff in our Enigma store. We still have a promo going on until the 7th, until today, for the the May the 4th kind of promotion. We have 25% discount on all of our products. So consider supporting the channel and supporting the team by purchasing one of the products. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.